Good morning, everyone. As some of you may have noticed, on Wednesday I didn't do a tool video. That was because I had to go down to the beautiful New Forest and pick up a sewing machine that has been kindly loaned to me. It's a rather lovely 29k patch machine, and I shall probably be doing a video about it at some point in the very near future. But today, and this is something that I know a lot of you have been after, we are going to be looking into knife sharpening. Now, there are knife sharpening videos out there. There are 101 different methods. If you ask a bunch of knife owners and a bunch of saddlers how they all sharpen their knives, you'll probably get 100 different answers, one from every single person. So what I'm going to show you is the way that I do it. And it's quite a simple way. Basically, you need some different grits of wet and dry. I have done this video before, but this is going to be specifically for today. So today I have got 280 grit, 400 grit, 800 and 1200. It doesn't have to specifically be those ones. It can be, you know, sort of 240, 320, 600. It just so happens that those are the ones that I have got with me today. And I have got a bunch of different knives. So these are all fractionally different shapes or different grinds. There we go. That's what we've got today. I don't know if I'm going to go over all of them today. I'm just going to keep an eye on how long the video goes. I don't really want it to go much more past 20 minutes because I think you might all fall asleep if that happens. What else have we got? We have got a Sharpie pen. Now, I've said to you about this before, and it's something that I'm really quite keen on and quite used to doing. It's when sharpening knives. If you're going right back to basics, you know, sort of, if you're not just giving them a quick strop, colour the edge of the blade in along these sorts of lines. Why? Because it gives you a really visual guide as to where you're actually working on the blade. So you do it on both sides, because obviously you're going to sharpen on both sides. There we go. I'm just going to do this on all the blades that I've got here. I'll tell you about each of them. So this is technically a Scandi grind because you've got this sort of bevel here, and it goes down to a really sort of fine, or it did originally go down to a fine sort of micro grind on the very edge. However, because of the way that I use my knives, that micro grind has gone and I flattened it out a bit. It's a bit more convex. That's the little Abbey knife that a lot of people like. Not so great if you've got big hands, which is a bit of a shame because it is a lovely knife. It comes sharp out of the box, and a lot of people do like it. I like it. However, it has been usurped slightly by another knife that I was given. I always said that I thought that it would be a fantastic knife if it was a fraction bigger. And out of the blue, a friend made me and gave me this. Oh, look at that. He's hit the nail right on the head with that one, which is why this one is now the one that I use on an everyday basis. This one arrived with a 20-degree angle on the edge, on a sort of a micro bevel, but that didn't work for me, so it now has a convex edge. And I'll tell you a bit more about those in a moment. Here we go, just colouring in the edge. Oh yeah, that's one of the things about this knife. It sings. The steel on it is so good. The makeup of it is so good that it really, really does sing when you ding it. Lovely. It's a really good sign of a good knife. And let's just do this one. This is a straight knife from Friedrich Herder & Sons via Abbey. It's a jack of all trade knife. It gets used for slitting, stitching. If I'm taking old girth straps off of a saddle, or if I've messed up and I need to open up the stitching and redo it, then this is the one that gets used. So there we go. So put them to one side. It does take a moment for the Sharpie pen to dry. So let's start on this one that we did first. So I've got my wet and dry. I'm just going to sharpen one knife completely and show you the basic techniques for the other ones, because they're all pretty much the same. So I've got my strop here. Let's just, no, not that one. Let's go that way. You can see part of the clamp on my phone. Oh dear. Let's go there. That's a bit better. Excuse the mess at the back of the bench. So this is my strop. It is a bit of wood, 3/4 inch or whatever it is, about 3 inches wide, and it's got a bit of suede on it. This part up here, because this is a really long, it's a big strop. Most of them are about sort of 12 or 15 inches long and about 2.5 inches wide. This is loaded up with some Solvol Autocell. It's metal polish. You can get it from Halfords. I know of other people who use other sort of buffing compounds and things like that. This is what I've always used, and it gives me the edge that I want for my knives. However, we're going to start off on a bit of wet and dry. Now the wet and dry goes on top of the leather, because the leather gives slightly, which allows a slightly more rounded edge to the actual knife, which is what I want. Let's just go zoom in slightly. There we go. When you put the knife onto the wet and dry, you can lift it up and you should be able to see the angle that you want to sharpen at, and it's when that flat of the blade actually touches and sits onto the wet and dry. And with these little round knives, you want to do a round motion like this, and then when you look at the back, you can see where the pen mark is being taken away, and that's the bit that I'm cycling through. And you can see the angle is up like this. Really, really difficult to show this part, but I am moving the blade as I cycle around it. As I go around the circle, I'm bringing different part of the blade into play. And then, so you can see I've done this part, so now I want to do that part. Mind your fingers when you're holding the wet and dry in place, and you can see exactly where it's coming off. If you're new to knife sharpening, you're going to probably find that it's going to take a while to actually get the angle correct, because you need to know what angle you need to sharpen the knife at to make it sharp for the way that you use the knife. And this is something that a lot of people don't take into account. I can't use my colleagues' knives at work because they all sharpen to a different angle and they all use it at a different angle. Some of it could be based on height, some of it could just be based on the way you use them. But you can see on that one, I've pretty much taken away all the pen mark. So now let's go on to this side. Again, you can see where it's coming off. There we go. Again, it's coming off. You can see I've obviously just here, I've got the angle slightly wrong, so I need to drop it at that point. So instead of being up like that, it needs to flatten down slightly. There we go, perfect. As you can see, I'm turning the blade over. When you sharpen a knife, you'll get a little burr that comes up. I don't always get it, or if I do, it's really, really fine. Perhaps that's something to do with the way that I sharpen knives. But what you're trying to do is roll that burr and sharpen that off of the edge, because that will then leave the sharp blade behind. So I've done that on all of the, that was on the 280 grit, so I started at the 280. Now I'm going up to the 400, and it is basically exactly the same process through that grit as well. You can recolour with a Sharpie in between if you want to. I don't always, because obviously this is something I do a lot. So fairly familiar with my blades. If I'm having a really good sharpening session, I will recolour it. I just find it quite interesting where I'm taking the Sharpie pen away. Okay, so we've gone through that grip. So we're now on to the 800 grit. So that was the 600. So I am again sweeping through, just repeating the actions, and that's what a lot of this is all about. It's repeating the actions in exactly the same way every single time, and that's what gives you the sharpened blade. So there we go, that's on the 800, and now we'll go up to the 1200. Interestingly, I don't know how sharp this is going to make the knife because I'm sharpening it in a different direction than I would normally, and as I said, it's all about muscle memory, so I'm being a bit awkward in the way I sharpen this because I need to get it into the camera's view. So I'm just hopeful that it's all going to be okay. I will try it out in a little bit of leather in a minute just to see how it is. I know that this video is probably going to raise loads and loads of questions. I love answering questions. Please don't feel shy about asking them. And if you know more methods about sharpening than I do, please feel free to add them, because what works for one person might not work for another, and there may be somebody out there that can help that person. So this isn't all about me. This is about everybody all mucking in to get the results that we want. So now we're going to the section of the strop that is loaded with solval autosol. I put it on about 10 minutes ago, so it has dried out slightly, which is great. And you're doing exactly the same thing, except you're polishing what you've done, refining it basically. Yeah, starting to come together quite nicely. Once you've done this a bit, you'll actually be able to know when you're getting there. And it's a funny thing. It's a combination of what it sounds like on the strop, the resistance that you get on the strop, and the shine. So now moving down to this little bit, which is it's not perfectly clean, so there's probably a little bit of solval autosol in it. However, for this purpose it will work. The strop that I use at work is about 30-40 years old and belonged to my uncle, who is a saddler in America, and he gave it to me before he moved to America. Well, I gave it to my granddad, who actually then gave it to me. So we're now at this stage. Let me just get a little bit of leather and let's just see. I'm quite happy with that. I think that is quite nicely sharp. Yeah, I can go with that. You can tell when a knife is sharp, it doesn't make any grinding noises as it goes through the leather. And you're not having to sort of pressure it through. So that's that little one. Let's just move it, what's it back out. So as I said, that's got a slightly different grind. It's got a Scandi grind, which is this line here. Oh, I can't get to focus on there. It's really hard to actually show the edge geometry on some of these blades. Just move back to one side, get rid of the scraps, put them in the bin. This one. This is a George Barnsley knife from Abbey. They're about 17-18 quid. I've spoken to you about these before now when I did my knife section. You've only got the one side of the blade, or one half of a blade to actually worry about sharpening. And again, it is just a case of going back through the motions. Let's get the 280 paper back out. And again, you're moving through the edge of the blade. So although you can't see it, the part of the blade that's actually coming into contact as I'm moving it through changes. So where my finger is, that's the bit that's actually coming into contact. There you go. Right, this is interesting. You can see at the very edge, there's probably a millimetre of black still remaining. So I've got the angle of the knife slightly too wrong. So which means I need to actually, rather than being like that, I need to lift my hand up slightly to bring it into contact. And there we go. It's gone. So I had the angle wrong on that one. Again, it's because I'm sharpening in a different direction or a different way to normal. Again, as I'm working through, different part of the blade is in contact. Where my finger is where I'm actually sharpening it. So again, cycling through the grades. Once you get used to this, it will only take you moments to sharpen a knife. I don't count how many sweeps on each side I do. Right, out to 800 grit. Please, please, please mind your fingers. If you're going to hold the paper here, be aware that that blade can come like that. So I don't want to be responsible for anyone slicing into their fingers, please. These are curved blades. It's nice and easy to be able to do it like that. Right, and then on to the 1200, which is effectively just polishing out the marks from the last time. So it's all looking quite nice and polished now. Onto the solvable autosol on the drop. I don't know if you can hear the difference, but you end up with, it starts off sounding grainy, and then that graininess stops and it becomes very slick sounding. That's when you know you're ready to go on to this bit. So in theory, this should now be, yep. In fact, I think it's even sharper than the other one. I think that'll do for that one. Basically, it's the same for all knives. Slightly different hand position for a straight knife. So let's show you that one next. Again, back to our 280. And this time, oops, there we go, there you go. I'm going to sweep the blade up like that. And I'm actually putting more pressure onto the edge of the strop. I'm quite literally running it up the edge of the strop, and there you go. You can see where I'm taking the Sharpie marker off, which is in the perfect position. You're more likely to get a burr on a straight edge than on a round knife, because with a round knife you're sweeping around the blade. On a straight knife you're sweeping away from the blade. So I know that I have got a burr on this one. I've got to reiterate, this is how I sharpen them. There are hundreds of different ways. One of my colleagues uses a old-fashioned oil stone. But boy, does she ever wear her knives out quick on that. So that was 280, going on to the 400. Now here you can see the way that the wet and dry paper is marking, because that's where I'm putting the pressure on it. So that's in line with the edge of the strop. Again onto the 800. And then on to the 1200. You can see the angle a bit better on this one. So I'm sharpening it at that sort of angle. Yeah, it's lifted off by about 5mm, the spine of the blade that is. And then I'm almost laying it flat on the strop and using all that space that I've got to contact. Just get the rest of the wet dry off, just polish that off. Just cleaning up the blade a little bit. Right, let's see. It's not quite as sharp as I'd like it. I've had trouble with this knife. It's a new, reasonably new, very modern one. As in, I've only had it a few months, and it doesn't, the steel doesn't seem to be quite as good as the other knives I've got. I do have other Friedrich Herder blades, and they're older, much older, but it'll do for the time being. Gives you an idea of how to sharpen a straight edge. Any questions, ask them. If I can't help, there will be other people that can help. We're up to about 22 minutes now on the video, 23 minutes, and I think that's long enough to hold your attention. Hope this has helped. Let me know how you get on.